Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, it's Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, FamilyPetAncestry.com. You're probably already there. Let's do the credits. Mike Rickberg composed and sang that song with his wife Sarah that you just heard. He's going to sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program. Patrick Brady is going to fix this audio, and Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, the website. There are many ways to support the show. The Amazon link is one. You can use an Amazon link from JackieCation.com or DorkForest.com to go to Amazon. You order like normal, and it supports the show. There is a straight-up donation button, PayPal or Venmo, to this email address that is mine, Jackie at JackieCation.com, where you can just donate to the show if you like the show a lot. I think PayPal has figured out a way to do a monthly. If you want to go monthly, please do. Other ways to support the show if you want to is you can buy merch. There's Dork Forest t-shirts, and all the shirts are union made here in America, so they run a little big. Union Bayside, so if you want to look up their size chart. And then the other merch is my stand-up merch. On JackieCation.com, you can watch me do stand-up, you can look at my schedule, and the stand-up merch, a couple of different t-shirts, couple of different enamel pins, and all of my CDs and my DVD. If you want to live stream my DVD, it's over there at comedyfilmnerds.com. They have a live streaming capability, or you can get a hard copy of the DVD on my website. Oh, there are premium episodes at Bandcamp. TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com has probably 10 episodes that were done live. They cost me a couple of bucks to make, so I charge you a couple of bucks. If you've run out of regular episodes, go over to TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com and get some more. Other than that, I say this. Let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room. Kat Burdick, welcome to the program.
Oh, that's so nice to be here. Thank you.
Yay! We're doing it. It's the Dork Forest. Kat Burdick, stand-up comic. You will know Kat Burdick, of course, from KatBurdick.com. KatBurdick.com. And it's at Dr. Kat Burdick on Twitter and just regular at Kat Burdick on Instagram.
Yep.
So those are the places you can follow Kat Burdick. And we're here to talk about the wild world of the next generation. Star Trek, the next generation.
The right generation.
The correct generation?
The correct generation.
Your favorite of all the Star Trek titles?
Yeah, I'm definitely a next generation girl.
All right. I love the idea that this is the one. Did you grow up with this one?
Yeah, it's that thing of like it was
formative years.
It was hot during the formative years. Exactly. Yeah. There's a line somewhere in like 30 Rock where Tina Fey said something about like Love Boat was hot when she was 13, so she's got some weird sex things about Gopher.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like it. Like, it's just like in Geordi, there when I was formed. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right. I loved Star Trek The Next Generation. It was the first real one. You know, it was the first one back, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I remember when I heard it was coming out, and I wasn't like hugely into the original Star Trek, but my parents did watch it.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal to them, so I was very skeptical. I was like, ugh, it was my first lesson in,
right,
you can think whatever the hell you want, and then a thing you can actually watch it and see what you really think.
Right.
So I was like, you can't follow up Star Trek with some bullshit spin-off, right? You can swear on this, right?
Yeah.
And
you know, begun.
And it came out, and it was pretty terrible for a while. I have listened to you on Treks in the City because you got a terrible episode. You got Code of Honor.
I got the worst episode ever.
The worst episode. It's so bad. It's beyond cringeworthy. It's like someone needs taken out a shot.
Right. Like literally, if they could just get rid of it, it would be great.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely one that needs to get like buried in the vault.
But we didn't know any better. We were just like
sort of. I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons Gates McFadden got let go for second season is because she had objected to a lot of that kind of stuff.
Was she the
she was the redheaded doctor who there's suddenly Dr. Pulaski in the second season.
Oh yeah.
And she had complained about a bunch of sexism and a bunch of racism, and a number of people in the cast had done it. But you can't fire Kunta Kinte for complaining about racism.
Right.
Like, you can X the lady who's up in your grill.
But weird enough, Worf was not in Code of Honor. because he was like, no,
Right.
I'm going to take a sick day.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but Kunta Kinte, Levon, he was in it, had nothing to do with and he was probably like, well, this is employing at least 30 black actors, I guess.
Right, exactly.
There's
We're paying some
something there.
rent, for Christ's sake. At least there's some there's some backdoor
But it was
operations
terrible.
here, but it's the worst.
And it was, when it first came out, when did it come out? 94?
It was like 87.
87?
Yeah, like 87, I think, is
Oops.
when they made the pilot. And I don't know
Okay.
exactly when like it dropped. But I
Yeah.
remember like in... by the time we hit 6th grade, I was pretty heavily into it. And I think that was 89.
Okay. So, and I know that it was VCR times. That's what I know.
And
It was-
we didn't have a VCR yet at that time. We got one a couple of years later, at which point I built my library
because
of Maxell tapes.
Yeah, nice.
Carefully, just
beautifully curated.
beautifully curated. You should have seen the labels, Jackie. With small synopses, as if I didn't know.
Oh.
It had the episode titles. It had the numbers. It had the air date, both original and the date I had taped it. I had learned to
did you
pause it
find-
during the commercials to cut the commercials out.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the
I went
commercials.
full AV geek.
Well, because Andy has a good friend who's been on the program, Robert Hurt. He's an astrophysicist, works at JPL now, and he loves the ships, and he all spaceships of all science fiction shows, and he edited out. He bought like a tape to tape and edited out the commercials. You just paused it and then resumed.
Like
Right.
yeah, and like it was my like
That was
you know
your task.
my so we're just like jury rigged way of
right.
editing it out because I didn't this was like the first
Right, you were
thing
12.
that spurred me to be an AV geek,
Right.
because it got me to the goal I wanted, right, which was just pure freebase and Trek, none of that bullshit where you have to like tell me about a local insurance agent. I don't care. Show me Riker or whatever. I just need to see it. Although now, when I do see, like, I don't have those old tapes, which we'll get to, but I'm sad when I have old tapes that I have cut the commercials out of because I like. The commercials
might have
now are
been-
amazing.
now
Like,
they
when you
might have
watch
been
'em.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. When you
'cause
go back,
right, if
or,
you would have
or
had it.
shocking, right?
Yes.
You would have been like, "Oh my god, that's such a blast from I forgot about the Noid,"
Right.
or whatever. So
Right.
I didn't realize at the time that would be part of a yearbook of my life, but
Right, because at the time you were just being an AV geek, and you're like,
Right.
we're gonna make this science-y. We're
Yeah.
gonna science up
Right,
the
we're
science
gonna
fiction.
science it up.
So, had you done any other sort of? Were you reading any science fiction, or was this? Because
Yeah, I was a big reader. I mean, I definitely identify with the whole spooky reading girl
Sure.
concept in a big way. I was a military brat, so we moved all the time. So that was like a guaranteed friend.
Yeah,
Is like I
but
have
I
my
never
books.
read science fiction until college.
I wasn't big into science fiction specifically, but I was into any books I could find on a
Right.
nearby shelf. My grandpa had he had an anthology of science fiction stories, and so I'd read some
You
of
had
those.
read some of those?
But I had mostly read like all the the Laura Ingalls books. I read all the Anna Green Gables, anything that was a long series. I was very into.
Right, you were into it, but because Star Trek was my introduction to science fiction.
Yeah, and I think it is a good like soft intro.
Oh, it's an
'Cause
awesome-
I'm not even now I haven't gotten well into some of the best science fiction that's out there, like Octavia Butler and stuff like that. Like
Right.
I mean it is. It's
There's
like
some
the Hilton
amazing-
Hotel science fiction because it is such a like hey like we're
Right.
just on a peaceful mission. Let's chill out. Like
Well, I mean, there's Star Trek, and which I was introduced to with the original Star Trek, and then Star Wars.
Yeah.
And those were the only science fiction I remember. A lot of other people were doing 2001.
Mm-hmm.
There was some Planet of the Apes happening, but
my dad was very into Planet of the Apes, but
I couldn't. It terrified me because I didn't get it, and but I was like, I knew that it was. I was a child. Anyway, but let's talk about Star Trek because
Yeah.
you like.
I like the Star Trek.
You like the Star Trek.
It is deep. That's the thing. Is I was like, oh, Dork Forest. There's so many dorkdoms. I love
Right.
people's dorkdoms in general. I love that your dorkdom is dorkdoms. That
Right.
people get into it, and there's so many that I'll listen to. I'll be like, oh yeah, the Muppets. Yeah. Like I've got a lot of things that have been a big piece of what I am now.
Right.
But I feel like Star Trek Next Generation is kind of spidered into almost all of them. So that's the core.
Right.
Like Star Trek Next Generation I mean, the first part for me was who's that? That's LeVar Burton. That's the guy from Reading Rainbow. And that's what pulled me into it.
Okay.
Because I was like, all right, books.
Yeah.
I love this guy. I love his whole deal. Why are they hiding his eyeballs? Why is he wearing a banana clip? I need questions answered, So I'd
What's
watch
a banana
for him.
clip?
Oh, it was an 80s hairdo thing. Remember the visor that Jordy wore across his eyes? What was made initially, the first kind of cheapy one in the first season, was made from a banana clip, which is a hair clip that has it was supposed to be worn this way, and you opened it up like a sideways mouth, I guess, if you're listening.
Like Jaws.
Like Jaws, but sideways, and it was like you opened it up and you put all your hair back into this terrible long ponytail that stuck out of your head. And the 80s was so horrible that it just mixes in. But that's what the prop guy found and had put over his eyes. Although it also, if you look at old pictures of African Bambaataa, he's got...
Who's African Bambaataa?
Africa Bambaataa is the guy one of the first guys who started rap in
in New York?
In New York.
Okay.
And he had worn these weird, narrow, cool guy sunglass visor. That kind of looked like that. And so they combined that with a banana clip, and then they got Jordy's visor.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I did not know the history of the visor.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The fact that he brought it from, because when you said banana clip, I was like, that's that hair claw thing.
Yeah.
And so he just turned it on its, did he break it up at all or kind of shave up?
He painted 2 gold dots on the side and painted the bars gold. In fact, I made a number of Star Trek outfits and props during my formative years, and one of them was I did make a Geordi visor out of a banana clip I had already owned, and put it on my friend Josh.
Sure.
During I made a parody of the Next Generation previews for next week. At the end of the show, they'd be like, and next week on Star Trek, the Next Generation. And they'd show you and this is going to happen. And what's going to go with this? And a guy would say a lot of kind of rhetorical questions. And what's going on with Riker's pants? And they'll show you a clip of some terrible tragedy. So I had forced all of my computer club friends and my neighbors, who were a group of 4 boys raised by a single dad. So they were always kind of free.
Right. They had some free time.
They had a couple, they had some minutes to kill. And they were also big Star Trek fans. So I forced a number of them to do my bidding to film this parody of the next week's preview, and it was
and they were all the characters,
and so they were all the characters, and so my friend Jeremy, who was kind of a tubby guy, he was Riker, and our joke was that somebody had sabotaged his replicator so that it made all of his food super high calorie. So it's a shot of him in front of a bunch of empty plates, leaning back, going, "Oh no!" And then his eyes go real wide, and then it cuts to a shot of the ship exploding that I clipped out of an episode. So, and then just a lot of dumb stuff.
My friend, remember when you were 11 and you had all the time,
the time. Oh, but it took, because to do that, I needed a video camera. And we had nothing of the time. I was born to teenagers, so it was always behind the curve on whatever was being owned by the rest of the neighborhood. But I knew that Rent-A-Center would rent out those, right? But you had to have a credit card and be a grown up,
right?
So I saved up babysitting money for a month, and we convinced those boys' dad to rent. I'd give him the cash, and he'd rent the camcorder so I could use it for the weekend. And to have the free time.
This is the best Rent-A-Center story
right?
ever.
It's the only good one.
The only good one. we rented a couch, and then they repossessed
and then we owed
it.
$4,000.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we had a Kirby vacuum. And so
I was terrified that I would break it and then owe all
the money.
Just be given to Rent-A-Center as a slave now. But to get the free time to do it, I had to wash the dishes and suck it up for a month while my mom was like, "Do you want to do your movie?"
Right.
Oh, right. It's one of those. But yeah,
that's good times.
It's ridiculous. The intensity of what I put into that, and also it was on the Star Trek collection of tapes that I described, which I took with me to leave for college. I'd been kicked out of my parents' house. So I was on my own at 17.
Sure.
And I had my prized possessions was my big dog, a box of just crap, and then a box of my Star Trek collection.
You'll show them.
Yeah,
you're gonna see the world.
I'm going to see the exactly.
You and the dog.
Me and a 130-pound husky. It's going to work out great.
You went to college?
Yeah. And
They kicked you out of school to go to college?
Well,
they kicked you out of the house to go to college?
Yeah, they for a lot of reasons. They had a lot going on.
But, unpack this. Did they help you get into college?
No.
So you got yourself into college.
Yeah, I got myself, once they kicked me out.
Are you an only child?
No, I have a little sister.
A younger sister. Okay.
Although I'm complicated, but at the time she was my younger brother.
Okay.
So there's, so I had gotten kicked out, but I had jobs and volunteer positions and had gotten good grades and I kept all my papers.
Yeah.
So I got myself declared independent so I could get my own student loans.
Right.
And go to college. But it was,
my sister did that.
Yeah, it was insane that I pulled it off. Now I don't know if I could. Now I don't know if I had the confidence. But at the time, I was like, "The world is my oyster."
The world is your oyster, and someone has to do this. And clearly, the adults in this situation will not be doing
taking
it.
care of the job.
Yes,
right.
My brother and my sister. I have 5 older siblings, and the 2 just older me looked at the 3 oldest and were like, "Oh, clearly, no one is in charge."
Yeah.
So my brother Russ was like, I'm going to college. I'm going to figure it out. You people do whatever you want.
Right.
My sister was like, yeah, I'm going to college. I don't know what you're doing, but it's all happening. So by the time it got to me, those 2 are like, you're going to college. To me. So I didn't have to do shit. And at that point, they were both like, I'm going to fill out your paperwork. You're going to make sure you're doing this.
Right.
And
you write this essay. I'll see you on Thursday.
Exactly. And I'll find you housing. And my sister had filled out all the paperwork and then realized that my father was still claiming her on his taxes. So she said, you have to refile.
Oh, wow.
And he was like,
Good
well, no,
for
I'm not going to
her.
refile. And she goes, you will
you
refile
or I will call the IRS.
I will narc on you
I'll
and
narc on you.
and tell you that it's happening because I otherwise I don't get enough money for school.
Yeah.
And he's like, fine, I'll refile. So he refiled. And then when I went to college, he also put me, and I was like, you have to refile. And he goes, I'm not going to refile. And I said, then you have to come up with $1,200 this year. And he goes, all right, I'll come up with $1,200. But it was always that sort of, all right, I'll do the right thing if you insist. What a piece of shit sometimes my dad was. And
He was
anyway,
a salesman, right? Yeah.
yeah, he's a piece of shit sometimes. Is what the real problem, the
core.
the real issue. And anyway.
So when I was leaving for college, I went to a college in Illinois, and I had lived in Virginia. So when I was leaving, I left my box of tapes with my friend who lived with a couple of her roommates, and one of them sold the tapes for drug money. Sold the tapes so he could do drugs.
Looking back on
the
that.
least nerdy, like for me at the time, it was like the ultimate betrayal. I didn't do so many drugs to get these tapes, and now you're just going to cash them in to get a bag of weed.
I don't know. Bag of weed,
right? I don't know.
And
so somewhere they're out there. But what's even crazier to me is like I've since bought DVDs. I have the episodes,
right?
But I don't have that parody video, which both I want and also want to know is destroyed because there are a lot of white kids in blackface technically in that video because my friend Josh, who was playing LeVar Burton, was not black. So
holy fuck.
Yeah, because at the time it was 1989 and I was just like, oh, well, like it's space. So, it doesn't I didn't know about it was the year I was finding out about blackface basically.
Well, and here's the thing about finding out about blackface as a young white child is I was just talking to a friend of mine and I said, you have to know that blackface is racist and it's the worst thing. And he looked at me and said, who would have taught me that? And he grew up in Mississippi.
Right.
And I said, your parents? And he goes, you've met my parents. No. They're loving, interesting people, but they are not woke. Right. They are not even interested in being awakened.
Yeah.
And I was like, your siblings? And he goes, he literally got mad at me. He was like, think for a moment. Who taught you? And I said, the 2 siblings,
right, the internet.
all of my, no. All of my siblings were full of justice and full of, what the hell is happening? Right. And even my stepmother, who accidentally one time went to a dance in 1967. She went to a Catholic dance. After a Catholic dance, she went to a party that was mixed with white people and black people. And she was like, I couldn't tell my mom I was going, but I really wanted to go dance with all these people. And we went. And it was after a Malcolm X speech. Mm-hmm. So she got to see the end of a Malcolm X speech.
Oh, awesome.
Right. I was like, what? And she goes, I know.
Right. What are the odds?
Right. So she was, my stepmother, enormously liberal and enormously just sort of aware, self-aware of her own privilege and without completely unwilling to fill out any sort of college applications,
right.
but more than willing to go, no.
Right.
No to blackface. So there was blackface in your parody.
Well, and that was the year, like, I also, this is so embarrassing, because I was also a huge Whoopi
Is he a
Goldberg
governor?
fan.
No,
he's not a governor now. Like, in fact, I'm not exactly sure where those boys are, but that was the same, it was 6th grade, and we got assigned to do assignments for Black History Month, which was like one of the first years that they had celebrated it in Virginia in the South.
Okay.
And our teacher was very into it. She's like, "Oh, this is great. And you could pick a black person of note, and you'll do this essay about them, but you write it in the first person, and you'll get up on stage. We'll have this little pageant, and you'll get up on stage, and you'll speak as them. And she said, you can bring props and you can dress up. And I was a bit of an overachiever and very into Whoopi Goldberg because of Jumping Jack Flash, which has got me into computers.
I fucking love Jumping Jack Flash.
It's the best, right? Like, and
it is such a craptastic.
It's so
movie.
Terrible, but it's so good.
Terribly wonderful.
It's got that guy who's not John Cleese. He's the guy you call when you don't have the money for John Cleese. It was so
I don't even
fun.
know that guy's name. I was just like, he was so incidental to the whole thing.
Right, but everything, like the chase scene, the whole thing. Her talking the Diana Ross bit with
and her talking to the doorman. She's like, "Do you see the look in my face?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, my wife has
the same look."
Yeah, right. Yeah, Jumping Jack Flash.
So good.
That's awesome.
I could do a whole Whoopi Goldberg.
All right,
but
Jumping
but
Jack.
I went. You got up early. I did myself. I braided my hair in little all the braids I could. I capped it off with the rubber bands for my braces. At the time, since I wearing braces, I had bought dark toned foundation at I lived on a military base, so the base store, from the only black woman I ever saw on the base, who must have been like, first, why do we even carry this? Because no one here has dark skin. And second, why is this white child buying dark?
White child.
You know what? I'm not even going to ask any follow-up questions. Just let her go. So I get on the bus, and nobody else rode that bus route like that early, and it was February, so it was still dark. I get to the school in what I think is the ultimate tribute to my hero, Whoopi Goldberg. And I get 2 feet into the school, and 2 women whisk me into a bathroom.
And they're like, nope.
To both scrub me down and to like explain what blackface is.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like I've seen that, but I thought it was like a shitty clown, like a harlequin, like a weird, like it doesn't look like black people. So I never connected the two.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, that's in Shirley Temple movies. That's in like
Holiday Inn.
Right. There's a million things with that.
Right.
I'm like, why are people such fucking assholes? So it was kind of the moment that I realized that the world is that messed up.
Right.
But
and
I was also
who are these
terrible.
These are 2 decent human beings who grabbed you.
Right. In like just
teachers
the deep South. Yeah. Just some teachers who were like, oh honey, no. This is not the compliment that you think it is. Right, exactly. Like we know you love her.
Right.
And I was like
you're
crying.
trying to connect.
I was like, but I love Whoopi Goldberg and I would never want to hurt her feelings. And then like a year or 2 later, she did that thing where she had her birthday at the Friars Club and they had the roast and she had her boyfriend Ted Danson and he came out in blackface. And people's reactions were very clear that it was not okay. And that was like 89 or 90. People knew like that's not all right anymore.
Oh, and here's this reveal.
Right, exactly. And I was like, and what made me feel a little better was like, of course, Whoopi, who's sometimes got her own brand of problematic, was like, come on. She was like, he didn't mean it that way. Like, it's a joke. And I was like, well, everybody else is furious, but at least Whoopi Goldberg would have laughed at my dumb ass.
She might have laughed, and she would have been like, "Aw, that's sweet that you like me." And go scrub your face.
Go take care of business. I'd done like the hands and everything. So I was like all day, like so ashamed. I was ashamed for years, but like I was so spent. They let me keep the braids, but believe it or not, that's not a full transformation. I don't know if you're looking at me right now. This is not very easy to get to Whoopi.
No, but I say, wow, what a weird. I mean, that's interesting that the teacher was like, no, definitely, tribute as much as you can.
She was thinking you would wear a vest to look like Frederick Douglass. Like she was thinking clothes,
an outfit,
right? Like an outfit, or bring a notebook.
Hopefully, no fucking shackles.
Right.
You're just like Jesus Christ. And
a lot of people did like inventors and stuff. I remember the year before I had asked to do Whoopi Goldberg for the Black History Month like write up, which wasn't a pageant. And the my teacher at the time had said I couldn't because she uses swear words. And and she was like, well, she's not appropriate. And I was like, she uses swear words? You know, she only raised in my esteem.
Why don't you hand me a book of a list of banned books so that I can read them?
So let me check these off.
Okay. You're going to want to talk about Star Trek anytime.
I am. God, we got there's so much. Okay. So, but also the way it ties into everything to me is interesting. They had a week back then when you remember A&E Evening at the Improv?
Yeah.
Right. They had a week where Star Trek people hosted. And so, of course, as a completist, like, I had to watch it. So I got up after everyone went to bed and, like, plugged in, like, my one earbud back in the day to the TV and, like, quietly turned it on so I could listen. And they had William Shatner host one night, LeVar Burton hosted one night, Geordi, Marina Sirtis, who plays Counselor Troy, George Takei, who's Sulu from the old one, and I think Denise Crosby was the fifth one. But on Marina Sirtis'
Who's Denise Crosby?
She's Tasha Yar.
Thank you. She was Tasha Yar. Okay.
And she, hot Star Trek goss. Last night, she just did a total burn on Rick Berman, the producer, because he was like, oh, I've had your communicator badge on my desk for like 30 years. You know, in the last episode that she was in, she just gave it to me, and I've had it here for 30 years. And she responded back like, oh, no, do you not remember? Like, you walked up to me in the last scene I was ever in, which was in the episode Symbiosis, and you unceremoniously yanked it off my chest and said, well, you won't be needing this anymore. And like,
whoa.
I was like, oh, Denise. Like, she came back fully, and people were like, oh, that's so mean, da-da-da-da-da. And
that's not mean of her.
I'll have dinner with him and stuff, but, like, that's, like, let's not
pretend that I gave it to him.
I handed it to you as some honorable thing. I was like, good for her. Fight it back.
Wow. That's brutal. She was so great too.
She was so good, and I felt I was irritated that she had chose to leave the show because they weren't doing anything with her, because it was like, it's the first season, they're not doing anything with anybody. It's an ensemble cast. Of course they're they're hitting the big guys first. Right. They're going to do Data. They're going to do Riker. They're going to do Picard.
Yep.
And then she ended up getting good storylines because she had left the show. They brought her back in all these different ways.
Yeah.
But the show after the first season started to get it really good. Second season was cool. They let Troy's hair down, so she looked like more relaxed.
Oh, right.
Before she had that like weird tight bun, and it always had like
so
a real
tight,
like a Nurse Ratched kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
They had the second Doctor, Dr. Pulaski, who was like kind of like they were trying to do like a Bones McCoy kind of like, oh, she's salty, you know.
Oh, right. She was gruff,
right? And they just made it so like, oh, she doesn't know how to pronounce Data's name, and he corrects her, and then she doesn't care. I was like, no, that's not gruff. That's an asshole. Like, she's
that's no effort.
Right.
Is what just happened there.
Yeah. Dr. Pulaski will misgender you. There's definitely a lot that could go on. But let me see. What else? I dressed up as Worf for Halloween in 1992, but nobody saw that because nobody lived on base. So I just walked to 2 houses and went home. But I made my own forehead.
You did the forehead?
Yeah, I was
but
very
again, no blackface. Pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Klingon, but yes, it still would have counted. I had some foundation left over from, but it was.
Are you Rachel Dolezal?
Problem.
What just happened?
So
here?
close.
So close.
No, that was before the other thing, but I should have not said any of that. All right, cool.
No worries. It's here's the thing: is we've all made mistakes, and everyone needs to know that they're never fucking alone.
Before 1990, nothing since then.
And you were in your early early
12
days,
and 13.
right? You weren't 24 years old and in medical school.
Yeah, and all of these were made with a great sense of love, not a sense of mockery.
Right.
Believe it or not, showing up like in minstrel face at your stupid medical guy party is
right.
Like, yeah.
It's not an homage to anything.
I am currently in stupid Twitter fights with a bunch of idiots who are like, "Oh, but we didn't know back then." I was like, "No,
everyone
definitely knew. And
everyone
I would
knew.
Not have been dragged into a bathroom had we not known. Like those women, everybody knew. Like,
everyone knew, even in Virginia.
Yeah, right, exactly. The old Dominion knew.
Yeah,
like, I live in Colonial Williamsburg. If Colonial Williamsburg has gotten the message,
memo,
right? Yeah, believe it or not,
right. Everyone knows that.
So I babysat to make money, and I bought a lot of Star Trek stuff back then. I got all the novellas.
Did you get
all the novels.
Oh, I always wanted. I wanted a phaser. I wanted a communicator, and I wanted I wanted
the little communicator chirpy thing. Yeah,
right. There was one that just made the noise, and I was like, why isn't it also a walkie-talkie? I don't understand.
They should just make a cell phone out of it now, because I would totally do it.
The flip phones were so close. Some of them kind of looked like them.
They looked, the
And-
one I had, that's the only reason I even caved on eventually getting a cell phone, and I did it really late. And it was only because, it does look a little quirky, like I was into it. And I was really sad when I had to stop using that.
Right. It's, oh well.
The information display on their computers is called LCARS, and there's an LCARS skin that you can get for your iPhone, your iPad, or whatever that makes it look like you're using the stuff on Star Trek.
Oh, right.
Which I'm very
I had a Star Trek case on the back of my, I think it was the iPhone 5, might be the 4, and it was looked real nice. Looked real nice. I put
Looks
it down.
good, right?
Look like a
Real
communicator.
classy.
Yeah, real classy. Anyway.
No, I did. I bought they started making the good toys. Then Galoob came out with that. They had the toy tricorder, and I was it lit up and it made beepy noises.
That's the thing about the Zoom. The Zoom looks like a tricorder a little bit, which is what I'm recording this podcast. Hi. And by the way, I'm talking to Kat Burdick, and you can go to @Kat Burdick on Instagram or @Dr. Kat Burdick, DR, on Twitter, and it's katburdick.com. So there you go. Just so you know.
Where sometimes I do manage to keep one thought in my head for almost 3 minutes. So that's going to be fun, because I'm not doing it here. I'm just so excited about Star Trek. And let me cross out a couple of these things I've talked about, because I made notes because I am that kind of nerd.
And then you feel like you've accomplished something.
Right, exactly.
My ad. I'm about to do an ad. Rangers, are you getting married? Because this is an ad for Zola. Zola is the wedding company that will do anything for love. It's reinventing the wedding planning and registry experience to make the happiest moment in a couple's lives even happier. From engagement to wedding to decorating your first home, Zola is there, combining compassionate customer service with modern tools and technology. Zola.com, you create your wedding website, and it conveniently manages everything online and in one place, saving so much time for people that are coming to visit, right? You start with a free wedding website. There's 100 beautiful wedding website designs to choose from. They make it easy to personalize your favorite design. You add photos and stories of how you met, travel and accommodations info, which is my favorite part, and they even recommend things to do for your guests when they're in town for your wedding. You put your Zola registry on your wedding website so guests get all the details they need and buy your wedding gift in one convenient place. It has a wide selection of gifts at all different price points, of course. So to start your free wedding website and also get $50 off your registry on Zola, go to zola.com, ZOLA.com/dork, and get $50 off your registry. Anyway, let's get back into the show. What's your favorite thing about Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Oh man, I'm really into the ships. I love the ships and the technology and the idea of a contained world that the ship is almost an organism. It's keeping you alive,
right?
In almost like a mother kind of way.
Okay,
it's got life support systems.
Yep.
The idea of a navigation system, you can you go where you want to go. The idea of a warp drive. I was very into the warp drive. Built a lot of models trying to make it look like a warp drive.
I don't even understand. If you're warping, you're going faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, you're warping the space around you to pass through it in a different way.
Okay. So, what is the class of ship that we are in?
It's a Galaxy class.
Okay.
Or at least the ship they're in Star Trek Next Generation is the 1701D. So it's the fifth iteration, because it was 1701 and then the A, the B, the C, and the D.
Okay.
And Kirk and company blew up most of the first ones, right?
Right.
So they
in
get
the
to
movies.
the D,
Yeah.
and when they start out the show, it's brand new, it's spectacular, it's the flagship of the fleet, it's the best and the brightest. And I think there's one other ship or two other ships that are essentially just like it. And one of them blows up sometime in the first season. They're meet up with it, and then it explodes in front of them, which makes you nervous.
Right.
We're riding in that ride. I liked that. I liked the idea of a replicator. We kind of have a little bit of that now with a 3D printer. We're getting close, right? We're getting there. I was very into the idea of a bar, 10 forward. You go and there's cool glowing tables, and they serve you fancy drinks. That look like Kool-Aid with a different color Kool-Aid on top.
Exactly.
Although I've always been irritated, they have synthahol, which is it's alcohol that doesn't make
Get
you
you
drunk. which I don't really see. Like at that point, just drink apple juice. Like I don't.
Right. Well, I think that just means that they have flavored beverages.
Right.
Is what they have.
If you read some of the books, some of it will say, like, describe it as being, well, you do get a buzz.
Oh.
But you can easily dismiss that buzz. And I think the idea is that it's got like a built-in buzzkill thing. Like the instant you have a little adrenaline pump into your system, bang, you're back to like full faculties.
Okay.
I think. I mean, that would be how it works.
Well, I know that the super serum, super soldier serum that Captain America uses, or that Captain America, he cannot get drunk. And maybe, but he doesn't trigger it in any way. So maybe in the future there'll be a way to just sober up people, because they're constantly like shooting people in the arm.
Right. Hypo sprays. They have those now. Those are real now.
Those are real.
Legitimately real now. The Army really uses those.
For what?
Just to give you like, like instead of sticking you with a needle, the pressure gets it through one pore, and it's real small.
Oh, interesting.
And they can give you like an, immunization that way.
Yeah. Okay. So like sort of normal, sort of basic shots.
Yeah.
Can happen. And there's something called Synergene, which I don't think is real. It was in a science fiction novel I read. And I think it's a synthetic energy, like
a protein bar in a shot. Or?
It's more like caffeine in a.
All right.
It's like it's.
Oh, we have that. We call that meth.
Right. Well, it wakes like if you get knocked out. Right. If you're stunned, they give you a shot of Synergene, and then all of a sudden, and it's always in a hypo spray.
I still remember the smelling salts gag you used to always see. You don't really see that anymore, but like
not as
snap
much.
it under their nose and somebody gets it.
Right.
Yeah. No. I
So the tech was the funnest.
The tech is really, I'm into it. I loved all the people. I loved the behind the scenes things, the idea of making a movie, and I think, or making a show like that. And Reading Rainbow had done a behind the scenes of Star Trek thing, probably just because LeVar Burton was too busy to do anything else. He's like, just come by my other job. We'll do a quick Reading Rainbow. Get out of my hair, right?
Yeah.
And he had shown how everything worked, and so that was part of too, like just kind of turning me on to the whole idea of.
What did he show you how it worked?
He showed you how that they put Michael Dorn into a chair and put the Klingon makeup on him, and how that works. They showed you that he wasn't really blind. He could snap his visor off, but he can't. He has to act. Ironically, like a blind man who can see when he's a seeing man who's made blind by putting on the visor, which is, so deep irony.
There was a twist.
There, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And you just got to see also like just the little hint that like, which now we know all about, but at the time that Patrick Stewart is really like kind of a fun guy.
Yeah.
When the cameras are not like doing Picard stuff, he's like, hey, how you doing? Let's dance. And then like they turn him on and he's, very staid and I'm the captain. So, I mean, all of that, the idea of the presentation of something versus what it takes to actually make it behind the scenes, I think that was important. Because I do have that little like, comedian Aspergy thing of just being like, oh, right. Like people say things to you and they may have had to work that out in advance so that they're not just
so you were like into the show part of the show too.
All of it, yeah.
Like there's the world of Star Trek, but you also like the production, like the showbiz part of it.
And like to a ridiculous degree, anything that was involved in Star Trek Next Generation, I would investigate. If it was the production, I want to find out how it was made. I want to know how to make the ship models that they have. I want to know where did the actors go to school? What's their personal history? like Marina Sirtis, who played Counselor Troy, had been in LA for 6 months or a year, like looking for jobs.
Yep.
Had been in like a couple, like a Death Wish movie, like a Charles Bronson thing as like a topless girl screaming, the classic girl roles we used to get. And then was literally like packing to go home and got the call, like, you got this job, like you can stay. So like just little things like that, like everybody's little stories of hope and like getting to be big. And I think they also have that thing of they're one of those casts that legitimately really actually do like each other and act like a family, where people love to do that when you interview people about a show. They're like, yeah, we're just one big family. And then sometimes it's true and sometimes it's bullshit. But they do genuinely seem to really like each other. Patrick Stewart, just as an actor. Mm-hmm. So I read Shakespeare because he'd mentioned it on the show. Like,
oh, God.
Yeah, they brought it up in like...
any number of episodes.
Well, yeah, and in like 10th and 11th grade, they had us have a Shakespeare, here, read this, read that. And I would have absolutely not done that reading. But I was like,
without Patrick Stewart.
Captain Picard said it's cool. So I'm in, right? So I read all of that shit, like in a big way, like got really into it. He did Macbeth in the like 10 years ago, I think, in New York at BAM. And I got to see it. Like I sprung for the tickets.
Really?
And it was unbelievable. And then they did a continuance of it at like the Lyric Theater or the Lyric, something like that. And I went, which at the time I was terrified to go to New York. This was before I started comedy. I went and stood outside the door to get him to sign my
stage door?
Yeah, the stage door, to get him to sign my complete works of Shakespeare, which he did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it took like 2 nights, and I was absolutely like mortified and embarrassed that I was even doing it. It was ridiculous.
But you got him to do it, which is kind of neat.
And he was super neat. And I went to go
and
see.
he was really nice about it?
Oh yeah, he was super sweet. And he did a Times talk, him and Ian McKellen.
Oh God.
Like a year or 2 back, and I went to that and asked them about like if they particular comedians they like.
Oh, interesting.
Which they were like, oh, a lot of them are, English, you guys won't know them. And I was like, well, like Billy Connolly, like Scottish. And they were like, oh yeah, Billy. But Patrick Stewart was like, gave Louis C.K. a big shout out, which at the time was very thrilling to me.
That's very
and
nice
I was
at
like,
the time.
Oh, goddamn.
Right.
But,
What did he mention Stuart Lee at all? Did he mention Stuart Lee?
No, he didn't bring up Stuart Lee.
Oh, he should have. Yeah,
he should.
Because he's a great guy.
He is good.
Anyway, a really funny
good.
guy. Anyway.
But Trek-wise, I think I do like seeing the technologies that have like become real.
Yeah.
I mean, just like cell phones or iPads are very much like what they had. 3D printers are getting close to replicators.
What do they use the replicators for? I forget.
Well, making anything, but mostly when you see it on the show, they're making food.
Right,
But they can make ship parts. It's whatever you need. They take the energy and they have it kind of beamed into the shape or whatever.
Right. It's a matter creator.
It's a matter
because the replicators
conversion.
That didn't feel like the food thing. The food thing is just like he'd say Earl Grey,
right?
Or he'd say. Someone would say, "I want a sandwich" or whatever,
right?
And the food would appear. It always felt like more of a microwave than a replicator.
It does, yeah. And I do feel like that when if I use a microwave, like that should just be the process. And I should just say popcorn, and then popcorn
comes out. That'd be awesome.
But so I am always like getting cheap little thrills out of if something is Star Trek-y in real life,
right?
The flip phone was not the only one, but that was definitely in there. I taught myself to sew so I could make a Star Trek costume for Comic-Con.
Okay.
I was terrified of the idea of using this old sewing machine my mother-in-law had given us. It sat in the attic for like 4 years.
Was it the Singer?
It was a 1957 pedal Singer, baby.
The pedal Singer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this one, you press the pedal, but it does have a motor.
Oh, it was electric pedal.
Yeah, but it was from 57, so it was right. They just started doing it.
It's a brand new one there.
And so I nerded out on that one. Like I looked up the machine to find out where it was made. But but it comes with like a little booklet, and it was a little booklet for women to read to learn how to use your sewing machine. And I was like, this is engineering. This is straight up engineering. Like, and then right after that, like I taught myself to knit, and I was like, this is coding. I got so mad that that we have all been told that women are not like suited for these roles. I was like, we're doing fluid dynamics. We're doing active coding. Knitting is just a code that turns into a real life sweater. Like,
no,
that's
I don't know that.
What
the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, if you look, I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of nerd stuff in here.
No, but how is that coding?
Yeah, because what it does is you do a repeated pattern, and it's giving you instructions like an R1 or a P1. When you look at the write-ups on a knitting pattern, it looks just like when you're doing code. It's telling you do this and do this for this many repetitions, and then turn it this way, and then do this, and then stop that, and then use this other material and do this. It's very much like what code looks like. Okay,
and so code does that to do what?
To run a program. Remember, I don't know if you did this back in the day, but like the old floppy disk games, like the old like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay,
you'd be doing like a little role-playing game, and you'd put in a question, and it would, based on your question, it would give you certain answers back.
Yeah.
That's all coming out of a code that tells it how to respond to certain inputs.
Right. I know that code creates the content, and it makes everything.
Well,
but I don't know how to write
content
code
by saying, then that might get in the way of like.
Right. But I also don't know how to knit.
Right.
So,
okay. That's
together, what you're saying is that because I know that binary is a series of zeros and ones.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. So and I learned how to write BASIC back in junior high and high school.
Yeah.
But it was
knitting is like basic coding. It's not like
it's
it's not assembler. It's not like neurons, but it's basic instructions written out in a very simple way,
so that the machine can understand how to do things.
Yeah,
so if
and you're
writing
the machine.
code,
if you're knitting, you're
right,
the machine.
You're the machine.
Yeah.
So if you're telling the machine how to do something, you're essentially saying, Here's the thing I don't understand. Do you know C++ or something? What do you JavaScript? What do you doing?
Like I know a little bit of Java. Like I know a little bit. I did BASIC back in the day. Like I know a little HTML. Like I know enough that I did all my first websites I made myself. Like so when I started knitting, I was like, wait, why does this feel familiar? Why does this look familiar? And then it just clicked. I'm the computer running this program,
and the
program
code that was
written out
is
in front
the
of me.
pattern.
Yeah, and the code is the pattern.
Okay. That's fascinating. So I'm sorry to have weeded off, but I was like, what the hell?
There should be more weeding really during this because I'm focusing so much on just the things that thrilled me about Star Trek: The Next Generation rather than it itself.
Which is fine because here's the thing about all dorkdoms is that another episode of Star Trek is about to happen. Like, there's going to be another one. And there's two other that are previous. And everyone loves something different about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different angle on even the same dorkdom, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I guess we can't talk about wrestling because you've already done a wrestling episode. And I'm like, I've done 5 wrestling episodes. We've barely mentioned the same people that are the wrestlers.
That's a big world.
It's a big world, as is Star Trek.
Same Trek. And even if you did 5 TNG episodes, you get a lot of different things out of it because people focus on a lot of different parts. But I remember you had Will Wheaton on, and he talked about beer. And I remember just listening, being like, God, I wish you'd talk about Star Trek some more. It's like, I just don't care about beer, Will. I'm sorry.
I don't care about beer either. But my thing with him is I was like, I think he's talked about Star Trek. I think he's
right.
Good.
He's so right.
I think he's covered it.
Obviously, that's not. I mean, I don't want to say that's not his dorkdom because he is.
He told me he wants to come back on and talk about bread.
Oh yeah,
because he stopped drinking and he stopped making beer.
But he carried the yeast over. That's
he carried the yeast over, and now he makes bread.
Oh,
and or what? I mean, and that was a year ago.
Although who knows with carbs? I mean, I'm not the person to say what's healthy. What else should I say about Star Trek? I was raised Catholic. And then, as many do, I came to the age of reason and started breaking from the church because I was like, I really like Jesus. The rest of you bros are not my best.
Right.
And so I kind of formed for myself a combination of Catholicism and Klingon honor code that I lived by for a good 10 plus years.
You took the Klingon honor code, not the Federation.
Yeah. I went straight for Klingon. The idea that you fight hard, you keep your word, you defend your friends, you die if it's a good time to die, you die. Because you know what? And don't wimp out, just come in swinging.
That feels so 13 years old.
Doesn't
You're
it?
just like, let's
bring it.
I'm willing to die. And you're like, 13.
Right. You might want to give it a couple of runs.
Right. I'm probably not going to live to be 20, has said every single person who was under the age of 20.
And I think I also liked, because there's an episode where Worf has a child with a woman who is half Klingon.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And then she comes back later. He doesn't know about the kid yet. She comes back later and there's just a little Worf with her.
Yep.
You make your conclusions pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then spoilers. She gets killed by a bad guy.
Right.
Duras. And Klingon honor code allows him to go and get his vengeance for this, right? So he without permission, beams over to Duras's ship and is just like, what up, bro? And, Duras and all the other Klingons are like, oh, you've been discombobulated. Technically, he had kind of been
discommunicated, right?
Yeah, excommunicated from being Klingon, which was bullshit because it was to cover up for Duras's father's crimes. But we'll deal with that another time. But he, another Klingon notices what's happening and he says, oh, he's come to exercise his right of vengeance. And you see everybody just be like, oh, I guess you fucked up, Duras. Nobody's going to defend him.
Right.
Worf just basically sticks a giant tuning fork into him and he's done. The idea of
but it wasn't a
vengeance
duel?
on my enemies was big. I guess it was, but he wasn't, Duras wasn't very good at dueling.
Or he didn't know that he was doing. Right. Did he have a weapon?
He definitely had a weapon because he's a Klingon and he should have 4 weapons on him at all times. So if he didn't have a weapon, that's on him for not dressing up this morning. But also he was a huge asshole pussy.
Right.
He was a terrible fighter. But yeah, it's at the time.
I
the
love that
idea
you're like,
of
that guy, fuck that
vengeance,
guy,
fuck
that guy.
I still have. You can see a legitimate distaste for this imaginary guy from space. I am
From
still
34 years
I am
ago.
still angry about.
Still angry about Dumas.
Yeah, because I liked.
You liked
right?
his girlfriend.
I liked his girlfriend Kaylar. In fact, I came real close to naming my daughter Kaylar. But it's got an apostrophe in it, and it also sounds like a cool black girl name. And I don't want everyone to be disappointed every time she shows up for the rest of her life. Like, oh, we were expecting somebody cool. You're not her.
And then all of a sudden, look at the tiny white child.
Right, exactly.
And,
I did name her something sci-fi. She's Ripley. But,
her name's Ripley? Yeah. Oh, okay. Which, that's pretty badass, though.
Right? I thought that was cool, right? It was like, if you stick to the first couple movies, she can't watch, like, by the fourth one, she's going to be like, what did you name me after? It was terrible.
The first movie.
But I did do some Star Trek baby cosplay when she was little and couldn't get away from me.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Because I had tiny wigs.
You had tiny wigs on your own child and have turned them into all of the different characters.
Yeah, because it was started because her little like high chair seat, which wasn't a full high chair, it was a short high chair, looked just like the captain's chair. And I was like, oh, I could make, oh, wait a second. And then it just got really out of hand, like everything I do.
First of all, this child doesn't look real. This child looks like a doll.
She's a real cutie.
That is a cute child. This is an adorable baby. And how old is this?
Well, now she's 2. She was about a year in these pictures. I took them at different ages based on how big the character was.
You put a fake beard on your daughter to make her look like Riker.
When she was asleep, I painted it on.
Oh my God. And
with
then
tempera because it's non-toxic.
And then did you glue that hand to her face?
No, she just did so many Riker moves. There's like 12 of these where she's literally like, I don't know if she just has
She's
it
on her chin. She's on her forehead.
My enthusiasm has apparently built it into my DNA. Like she came very close to flipping a chair around and sitting on it backwards. But that is a lot. That is so much to have done to a child. The kid's like 2 now? Yeah, she's 2. And now she I don't think she would put up with this. But also the idea of like doing the different genders, I was like, oh, well,
it's fine.
My sister would love to have some stuff when she was a little kid that she feels like fits into her ID now. I was like, hey, if my daughter turns out later, she tells me, nope, I'm a guy. Yeah, great. You can put this as your Throwback Thursday. Exactly. You don't have to explain anything.
Right. Everyone's just psyched.
Right. Everyone's
as are you. And because this is the picture right there of Tiberius,
right?
Who was our
Kirk.
Right. Well, no, he was named after a Roman general named Tiberius Gracchus. Gracchus.
Right.
So his name was Tiberius Gracchus, and he just passed away, old age, 23. And he's an iguana. He lived for a long time. He was a great iguana, very sweetheart. But Andy would occasionally put a hat on him. And there's a couple pictures of him with a hat on, and he could not have looked less pleased.
This is my iguana Ishmael.
You have an iguana?
I don't anymore. He lived to be 16.
Oh, nice.
He died after a tragic run-in with a terrible vet in New Jersey that I took him to when he had broken his leg.
Ooh.
But he was a really good guy.
Aw.
But that's one of the reasons that I really loved one of your first albums where you're talking about it's like petting a purse. And I was like, it's exactly like petting a purse. He was a good guy. He was a great pet. Right.
He was a sweetheart. And Andy just got that picture from Carmen Morales for his birthday. And because Carmen did some iguana sitting when we were out of town, and so she has a bunch of really great pictures of Tiberius.
That's a good friend, because it's hard to find somebody to pet sit your iguana.
Yeah.
People are not into it because they look so terrifying, but they're really chill. Like
they're super chill, and she was cool with letting him out and having him wander around. And one time he was out, and I could not face for some reason picking him up and putting him back, but I wanted to let him out, and so I called Carmen. I was like, hey, take you to lunch if you come over and pick up my iguana and stick him back in his cage. And she's like, oh my God. Yes, of course.
Yes, absolutely. That is worth a Chipotle run.
He was having a sort of a male rage day, so he was a little aggressive. And she was like,
they would like notice if you're on your cycle. It sounds weird, but like they pick it up. Like they're
just like, all right, I'm going to bite your pant leg. And I was like, I don't want you to bite. And so he bit Carmen's pant leg, and she was like, and I said, I'll try to, maybe I'll spray him with water. And she's like, you're just spraying me with water. What are you doing?
Right, like he's not a cat. He's not gonna be like, oh, I'm wet. Oh no, my fur. It's like it's just gonna sloth right up.
I was warm anyway. Anyway, it was a weird. Okay.
I'll talk about one more Trek thing. I went to Star Trek conventions, a number of them when I was a kid.
I never went to one.
I went. They were a delightfully nerdy treat. Oh my God, so good.
They were sort of early conventions.
Yeah, and these were fairly early ones because it was It was early 90s and stuff. And I went to one of Virginia Beach, the first one I ever went to. This was another case where like nobody could drive yet. So we like bribed somebody's parents, took us. And we go, and it's George Takei. And he gets up, he's on the stage talking. We got there a little late. So we get there as he's talking. And it's a whole room of these like just real nerdy, uptight dudes in the middle of Virginia, right?
Right.
And I walked in and I was like, what am I feeling right now? I was like, I know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling a room full of a little uptight men realize that this hero of theirs is definitely flaming gay because it was not undercover. Like, George Takei wasn't out, but it was obvious.
Right.
And his boyfriend was there with him. Like, he had, like, it was
wasn't
very
hiding
clear.
anything.
Right, he wasn't hiding anything. It was like up to you.
He's like,
if
I
you
am an
asked.
actor.
Right, exactly.
I played that guy on Star Trek.
That was really interesting because the first time I ever thought about the idea that like you could be so different than the character you played that you have a fully different sexuality.
Yeah.
And also the idea that I was seeing, I was like, oh, I'm seeing all these guys realize that, you admire a man and he's gay.
And he's gay.
And it's nothing. That doesn't matter at all.
He's
and you
still
have to
George
let
Takei.
a bunch of shit go, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
When I got
so
to
that was
meet
fun.
Walter Koenig for the first time, I was like, holy shit, that's Walter Koenig. And he would not make eye contact. He was very polite about it. It was Danielle Koenig used to do stand-up. She's a comedy writer now.
Right.
And
Right, because his son was on like Growing Pains, right? Who's like an actor? Yeah.
yeah, but Danielle is married to Jimmy Pardo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, but I was at their wedding, and that was the second time that I met him. But and I saw them not long ago. They go to this diner that I go to over in Burbank, the Magnolia Grill. And so, but the first time I met him, I said, I'm a huge fan of your work. And he did that eye slide of, well, thank you very much. And he was like, is it going to get weird? It isn't. Oh, good. Oh, good. It isn't going to get weird.
It must get so weird for him.
It must be intense.
So often.
Right.
And I always feel like the best way to reward anyone whose work you admire is to leave them the F alone.
Right. Or to be as distantly polite as they would like you to be.
Yeah. Or just say hi on the way out of a show. Right. Like nothing major.
Right.
Which occasionally I break and feel terrible
Right.
about.
Because hit and miss, but I love Dave Chappelle a great deal.
Yeah.
And I also am exhausted by Dave Chappelle because he will go for 6 hours. And I'm like, no one wants that. No, that's fine. Because David Cross
That's like
does
the guys
it too.
who think like banging for 2 hours is something women want. No, we're
No,
chafing. At
we're
that
done.
point, right, like, go home.
Right. It's unless something is happening that clearly isn't.
Right. If you need to go for a second helping of Astroglide, stop.
If I know, if I'm aware that we're 2 hours in, we're not doing it right.
Right.
I should not be.
Time flies when you're having fun, not slogs like crazy.
But yeah, so in passing is good. Anyway, so some favorites. Let's do it.
Oh, just like favorite episodes?
Yeah.
I'm a real sucker for the Riker Troy episodes again because I was coming of age during.
Right.
It's like ooh, girls
Bow,
and
chicka,
boys.
bow, bow.
So I and because I'm also obsessed with LeVar Burton, there's an episode that he directed called Second Chances, which is where the classic soap opera. What? There's an evil twin. Not really an evil twin, but there's a duplicate of Commander Riker that was like accidentally created in a transporter accident. So accidentally they just left this dipshit Lieutenant Riker on a planet to just like kill time for like 7 years until they come back to there's this open window in the atmosphere.
How do I not remember that?
Oh yeah. And so like they find him, like Riker finds him and is like, what the hell? You know, they beam him up, the doctor checks him, and Jonathan Frakes did a great job of acting like, oh, I've never seen this lady before in my life. Hey, nice to meet you, Doc. You know, he did a good job of acting like this more kind of immature version of himself who hasn't seen any people in 7 years.
Right.
And so his, ex-girlfriend who's on the crew is like, oh, I'll go talk to him. And you just see like the real, like air quotes, real Riker, like the main Riker be like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not good. Like,
yeah.
And the redheaded doctor and Counselor Troy are like best friends, right? So they have like little girl clashes sometimes. They have like little scenes where they're like, oh, we're doing aerobics and talking. Like, so they did one of those where it's like they were doing, this time it's Tai Chi because it's been a few years and they don't have any more spandex left, right? So they're doing like Tai Chi and talking, and she's like, you should definitely bang him. And she's like, I knew you would say I should bang him. She's like, you should. And he shows up and she's like, wrong. I'm leaving. See you guys later. Wink, wink. And like locks the door. So it's like super classy. And then she does. The implication is that she bangs him. It was the 90s. They never, like, now they just show people fucking.
Right.
Back then, if you liked two characters and you wanted to have them bang, you were needing to write some fanfic. You have to imagine it yourself.
Right.
Like, there was an implication.
There was a lot of closed doors.
Right.
And
There's a lot
like,
of, like, bodies move towards each other, and it's the commercial. Which was upsetting, especially during the X-Files. But the, So then the next scene opens where she's like clearly finished off with him and he's asleep. And she's like, I'm going to go get a snack and 10 forward, right? Like, I'll go in there, get a sandwich. She comes in, original Riker's standing there just pouting, just staring out the window, full pout. Like, this guy hasn't banged half the universe on his way to this, like, this thing where he's like, I can't believe you're banging me, but it's not me. And so, his feelings are very hurt. And I love that scene. And they did... Like, LeVar Burton did such a great job of framing it and showing the characters in, like, this had been done like maybe 100+ times by this time that he did this episode. And he was finding ways in his first directorial debut to make it look a little bit new again or show off somebody. Like, he did such a great job with Marina Sirtis, like, letting her have a real scene and have some meat to it. She did an amazing job with it. She does a great job of looking like she's really hurt when she would be hurt, and looking like she's like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna let myself do this once," right? Like thing. And
because the characters were they weren't allowed to be much more than 2-dimensional.
Yeah,
because everyone was super precious about the Star Trek. The fact that they were the generation. They're like, don't break it, don't break it.
And you notice that because everybody has like a dead family. Like, they barely have any family alive. Like, Worf has his foster parents.
Yep.
And his brother, who they don't meet for like 7 years and never gets mentioned, right? Yep. And it's insane. Beverly's whole family is essentially dead except her grandma, who's banging that candle ghost. We find out about later. If you're not familiar with the show, check that out. Troy's dad is dead, and her little sister that she didn't even know about is dead, but her crazy mom shows up.
Crazy mom shows
up
to
hump the captain, which is always fun.
Always good time.
Most of the people I know don't like Counselor Troy's mom and her episodes.
Oh, I kind of love her.
I love her. Because at the time, there wasn't a lot of that. And the only reason they let somebody come on and dominate the show in that way is because she was married to Gene Roddenberry.
Right.
And it was clear that was the case.
Yeah.
But she made a meal of it. She did the real anti-Mame. Like,
she had a beautiful... She was having the time of her life.
Yeah.
And even I could tell... I was like, oh, she's a nightmare.
Right.
But she's kind of great.
She's fun, right?
Yeah.
And that was back when women weren't as much allowed to be nightmares. I mean, she was bringing 50-year-old cleavage and highlighting it and having it center stage. I was like, this is goals, right? Like, I didn't know what hashtag goals was yet, but that was it, right?
Nice sternum. Nice sternum, lady.
Right? Nice rack. And just things like that. Like, I did like all the for the most part, the Counselor Troy mom episodes. I liked... sometimes when they do like a specifically science fiction-y thing where they did the ship looping again and again through time. And then at the end, it turns out they got into a ship crash with Kelsey Grammer. Like, Frasier shows up and is like, what's up? And he thinks he's from like original Star Trek time. So he's been caught in this time loop forever. That was really cool. Mm-hmm. I like what they did with the last episode, which is always, for every show, it's really hard to nail a last ep.
Yeah.
Last eps are so hard.
Can't
to get
remember
good.
what it was.
Oh shit, how am I forgetting the last one? That's a goddamn shame. That's amazing. But it's a show where they had to go to their first mission. They had to go like kind of halfway through the show where they are now, and then they had to go into the future, and it was Q.
It was always
dragging everybody.
I was going to say it has to be a Q episode.
It's got to be Q, right? And they
Q was so great.
He was great. And what a great actor. He was in like everything in the 90s. He'd be in LA Law. He'd show up. And I would watch any episode of anything that he was in. So it would get me onto other shows because part of the Star Trek nerdery was to be like, oh, John Delancey's on it. Guess I'm watching that episode. Ooh, LA Law is pretty good. You know? Let's see. There was one other dumb thing I wanted to talk about before we were done. What is it? Sorry about that. Oh, that's Star Trek is how I met one of my best friends ever.
Yeah?
Was we were both in a science class at the beginning of college, and they were introducing to us the Heisenberg principle.
Okay.
And they said, the professor said, and that's why the transporters on Star Trek wouldn't really work in real life. And we both sat up on opposite sides of the room and yelled the phrase simultaneously, but that's why they have the Heisenberg compensators, which is a specific part of the transporter that you only know about if you're a huge nerd. And we locked eyes. And then she was my bridesmaid 10 years later. So it's just
Kat Burdick, we're going to end on that because we're at an hour. This has been fascinating. I love this angle of Star Trek The Next Generation dorkdom. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you so much for having
Everybody, it's at Dr. Kat Burdick on Twitter. It's just Kat Burdick with a K, KatBurdick on Instagram, katburdick.com, to find all of those things that you haven't found, and follow her to find out where she's doing stand-up comedy. Thank you for doing the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?